It's finally here. Politico's reporting that Novavax, the purified spike protein vaccine is coming, that it will receive EUA authorization by the time you're watching this video, which is tomorrow or today, depending on when you're watching it. Novavax. This is what people have been waiting for. It is not an mRNA vaccine. It is not a vaccine that works by taking a piece of messenger RNA, going into your body, probably the skeletal muscle cell more than anything, getting that skeletal muscle cell to make the spike protein and express it on its surface, and then get the body to attack the spike protein and be trained on attacking spike. That's how mRNA vaccines work. This isn't that. They have recombinant. They have, in a bacterial system, created a way to engineer the spike protein itself and take that spike protein and deliver that to the body so that the body can learn to attack spike. You don't make the spike. We made it for you, basically. Now, this is a more traditional form of vaccine, and I think many people believe that if it's more traditional, it will have a higher acceptance. The people out there who say, I'm still worried about mRNA, etc., they're not going to be dissuaded from a purified protein, a recombinant protein vaccine. What do I think about all this? Well, one, I think, it's still a new drug product. And truth be told, at this point, you have much more of a denominator of people who've received mRNA vaccinations than you do this, the Novavax. And I think, a lot about the safety profile of mRNA vaccines. I think we know what happens to people in the day or two after they get it. And I think we also know about the serious safety risk, myocarditis. With this, I think there will be a little bit more uncertainty, even though it is a more traditional format, just because you've only given it to tens of thousands of people and not billions of people. With time, it might have a different sort of safety profile. We might learn more with time to come. But I do think there are some people for whom the mechanism of action matters. Now, is it going to make a big dent in the pandemic? Well, I'll talk more about the data in a second, but first, is it going to make a big dent in the pandemic? First, you got to think about all the people, the 80% or plus of Americans who are eligible who've been vaccinated. And I'm talking about adults here. Let's put the kiddos aside. That's not going to be a central point of the pandemic. I don't think, I think that's missing the point. We're talking about adults here. Most of them have been vaccinated at least one dose. Many have gotten 2 doses. There's a bunch of people who haven't. And the vast majority of those people have already had COVID-19. And so I think this vaccine will only make a difference if it finds a way to reach the person who's an adult, who never had COVID-19, and didn't get one of these other vaccines. That's a unique individual. I just can't imagine that's a high percentage. They could have done, as part of their FDA review, some sort of seroprevalence study and mixed it with some sort of vaccine study to get an estimate of how many people might be out there who could actually benefit from Novavax. Do I think Novavax will further reduce the risk of severe disease in somebody who hadn't recovered from COVID-19? I don't know, but I don't think there's a very high risk there to be reduced. And I think that because of the CDC's MMWR paper of California and New York State. I don't think it's going to make a big impact for those people. Will this vaccine appeal to that sliver of the population that hasn't had COVID, that hasn't had a vaccine? I don't know, maybe, but I think it's going to be difficult for the pairing to happen. I'm not sure how it's going to happen. I think a lot of people may not even have known that they had COVID, especially in that group who is sort of vaccine resistant. They might be the one least likely to test themselves for COVID and just, have treated it like an upper respiratory tract infection. Okay, back to this. I read the packet, the FDA ODAC packet, and it got a glowing vote. Not ODAC. I always say ODAC because that's the Oncology Drug Advisory Committee. This is the VRBAC, which is the Vaccine Advisory Committee. I always got oncology on my mind. Forgive me. This is, of course, the Vaccine Advisory Committee. All these advisory committees are the same. I think you should know. There are a number of them in different disease systems, and they all serve, at the pleasure of the FDA, and it's a bunch of external experts who provide their input on the FDA. In the past, they tended to vote. Sometimes they voted on specific questions. Increasingly, they don't want them to vote. They want them to sort of just talk it out. That's at least the precedent at the Oncology Drug Advisory Committee meeting. The VRBAC has had votes. This got a good vote. What do we know about this? I think we have a vaccine efficacy. Anytime you're in a randomized fashion, it's efficacy in a 2-to-1 randomized controlled trial with tens of thousands of people. You have a vaccine efficacy that they're quoting in the 80 percentage point ballpark. But if you look at sort of a more intention to treat rather than per protocol population, and you measure any instance of COVID after the first dose, drops a little bit in their packet to about 58% vaccine efficacy for symptomatic SARS-CoV-2. But I think more importantly, there is the signal that there is a reduction in severe disease and hospitalization. But this trial was done a long time ago. I mean, it's done a long time ago, and it's mostly in a population I couldn't find that they had documented, but I assume it's mostly in a population that is naive to COVID-19. They're not seroprevalent with COVID-19. It's not run like last month. It's run like 2 years ago. So that's a salient difference. If you take a group of people who haven't been vaccinated, but most of whom have had COVID-19, and give them this vaccine, what will be the reduction in severe disease and hospitalization? I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. It requires a new study. I don't really understand why the FDA dragged their feet so much with this vaccine. It doesn't come across to me. And usually I kind of read between the lines when I read these packets. I couldn't get the sense. One thing that does come up is myocarditis. Now, of course, the mRNA vaccines had that unfortunate side effect. And I think it actually does matter because it should have changed our vaccine policy in certain age groups. We should have pursued ways to give it more safely in those age groups. And of course, I'm talking about boys roughly between the ages of 12 and 40, but most in the core ages of 18 to 24. There is the much higher than baseline risk of myocarditis. And it is not a trivial adverse event. It is a severe adverse event. It often leads to hospitalization. Now, you might think that the myocarditis had something to do with the mRNA vaccine, had something to do with the method of mRNA, something to do with the way it was wrapped in a liposome or wrapped in lipids. But what you find here is that this vaccine, which is a recombinant protein vaccine, it also has myocarditis. It has myocarditis. They even found that in the registration study. They even found that in the 30, 40,000 people they've randomized in this study. That tells you that the signal is real. I looked through the cases of the people who had it. I think there were 6 cases that the FDA talks about in their packet, and they tended to happen in that target demographic. There was one case of pericarditis in a 60-year-old. Might be related, might not be, I don't know. But most were in that target demographic of men in that age group. What do I think? I think as this vaccine gains uptake, and again, I'm not sure how much uptake there's going to be because lots of people have been vaccinated already, and a lot of people have had COVID already, and I don't know how many people out there are waiting for this, but there might be some. So I'm not sure how much uptake there'll be, but once those people start to uptake, we will get a clearer sense of the myocarditis signal. Is it higher than Pfizer? Is it lower than Moderna? Is it higher than Moderna? The answer is, I don't know. I don't know, and you won't know until you give this vaccine to lots and lots of people and collect sort of empirical data on it. Is this going to change the pandemic? I really doubt it. I don't think it will. It's still a spike protein to the original Wuhan ancestral strain. I think that's a point that worth making. If you replicated this trial in this year, in this moment, with this baseline seroprevalence on unvaccinated people, will it have the same result? I don't know. Will it have the same result against Omicron? I don't know. I suspect the vaccine efficacy against any disease will drop precipitously. That's just my expectation because of the immune invasion that we know that happens from Omicron. Why did the FDA drag their feet on this? What is it about this that gives the FDA pause? I really don't know. I mean, I suspect there's something about this that gives them pause. Now, I think people will, of course, be worried that is there something about the money and they want the money to go to Pfizer. I'm not sure. I don't see that. I don't see a reason why that would be the case. This is also a company that was supported by Trump's Operation Warp Speed, received funding. This was once thought of as the most promising candidate. So I'm not necessarily persuaded by that. But there is, I think, some reason why the FDA dragged their feet on this. And I don't know the answer. And if people know, maybe toss it in the comments. Toss, realistic and plausible reasons why, not, all sorts of reasons. I want to know realistically what is the real reason, especially somebody who has regulatory expertise. So Novavax, it's finally here, long awaited. Is there a group of people for whom it will be the thing they've been waiting for? I don't know. I was reading somebody who said online that they really wanted Novavax and they flew abroad and got it. So, I'm not sure that there'll be that many people left for it. Will it change the sort of broad pandemic numbers? I highly doubt it because among the people who are not been vaccinated with mRNA or J&J, most of those people, I suspect, have had COVID-19 and recovered from it. And if you give them a Novavax on top of that, could you possibly lower the risk of severe disease from getting COVID again, which they likely will? I don't know the answer to that question, but I would have my doubts. So that's what I know. Novavax, read the packet, the FDA packet. It actually made me think, did the original Pfizer and Moderna studies have myocarditis in the original data set? Because here they know to look for it because it was identified and talked about. But when you didn't know to look for it, could you find it? If anyone knows the answer to that question, the original Pfizer and Moderna publications, of course, I don't think they mentioned myocarditis. I read those at the time. But has anyone reevaluated those data sets to see, was there that signal? They just didn't identify it as linked to vaccine. If somebody knows the answer to that, put that in the comments as well. All right. Until next time, this is thoughts on Novavax. Finally hitting the U.S. market, according to Politico. Should be hitting the market right at the time this video drops. Politico tends to know the right answer because, of course, they probably have somebody inside the White House telling them this information. If you like this channel, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, leave a message below. Until next time.